Monday morning briefing video episode. I've already lost count. I haven't done more than a half dozen of these and I've already lost count. I think it's number 4. Pretty sure it's number 4. Anyway, just got here to the shop. Run a little bit late this morning. It's not as early as it usually is. I've been busy all weekend doing chores for my wife. They're not really chores, they're projects. But usually this time of year, every year, we go to get Bolivar Peninsula, which is over there by Galveston. And we usually stay there a week. That's our only vacation, really, that we take every year. And we get a house and rent a house there in the off season. It's really actually pretty cheap if you're ever interested. Look that up, like after the peak season, which is summertime, you know. I don't know exact dates, but you know, you get into late September, early October, stuff like that. The rates are really cheap, cheaper than a hotel actually for that long, for a week, you know. But anyway, we usually go down there and we surf fish. I like to surf fish. It's just a lot easier when you've got my son and daughter are 5 and 6 years old, so it's a lot easier. They can play on the beach and hang out and then put the canopy up and all that, and I can fish and wife can fish, everybody. And then everybody's still with each other. It's not her and I off on a bay trip, you know, fishing, and the grandparents just watching the kids. It's all of us together, and so that's a lot of fun. So, but every year we usually do that around this time, and this year I just had too much going on with the move and everything else. We just couldn't swing it. Kids have started school, and so we thought we were just going to skip this year. Well, the grandparents actually still went. They got a house. My wife ended up with them, the kids having a 3-day weekend right now because today's Columbus Day. She went ahead and left on Saturday. She was going to go on Friday, but we had Hurricane Delta come through, and the grandparents actually weathered that storm in the cabin on Bolivar Peninsula as it went by, headed towards Louisiana. And that was the first hurricane I think they've ever experienced up close and personal like that. I grew up in Aransas Pass, so there was a few Category 2s that we stayed behind for and went ahead and just waited it out. But much above that, I'm probably evacuating. But they were fine. They were on the clean side. It stayed really out in the water and came up the coast of Texas and then went into Louisiana. And so our thoughts and prayers are with everybody that was around Lafayette and where that thing came through right there in Louisiana, because it was a Category 2 when it hit, but that's still 115 mile an hour wind, something like that. So we really hope everybody there is okay and that they'll get rebuilt. That if you grow up on the coast, you kind of just know that every so often something's going to happen. This year has been absolutely insane. I've never seen so many hurricanes. Laura just went through there. That basically that same little area right there. I think it was Laura, and now we're naming them Greek names. Delta. That's just so. This has been a really weird year, but environment's environment. I mean, the earth is ever changing, and hurricanes are nuts. So I'm not going to get on a political conversation about that because we don't do that. We're not going to get into that. But all I know is that grew up on the coast my entire life until I moved to college, and so hurricanes aren't anything new. This many of them is kind of weird, but things change. But she was going to go on Friday, but then that was coming through, so she waited. And then, of course, after it passes, everything's fine because they didn't have a storm surge. They didn't have damage. They didn't have any of that there at Bolivar. So Saturday morning, everything was beautiful. And so her and the kids took off. And so they've been gone, and I ended up just working on, we're building some horse traps. We've got some little traps behind the barn for the horses and stuff, but we don't have, our pasture basically is 2 big hay fields. And so I don't want to turn out a yearling and a 2-year-old and then 3 broke horses, all just let them have the whole hay field because they'll run each other through the fence, or who knows. Horses are looking for a place to die most of the time. So we're building some turnouts, and they're just small traps. They're not even real large paddocks or anything, just small traps. And so I've been welding pipe, and I told her that you just need to, between things going on at the shop and doing that, I don't have a whole lot of time in the evenings. Days are getting shorter, and so when I get home from the shop, 6:30 in the evening, I've got enough time to maybe get one piece welded up, you know, cut, fit, and welded up. And so I just welded all day Saturday. I actually lost track of time and looked up, and it was 6:30, 7 o'clock. And so I kind of got a little hot. It was still a little hot. It's still hot down here. It's not cool at all. And so had to watch that, but drank plenty of fluids and everything and got everything done. Actually got 2 of the traps ready for gates. So Sunday morning, first thing I did was hang gates and turn horses out. And so they were very excited to be turned out into something bigger, and so they played and did all that all day. After that, I came to the shop and actually did some work here, and I worked on the knife scabbard video, finishing the edit on that. I know I said I was going to try to have it out last week. It didn't happen. It just couldn't happen. So, but we got the edit done. I've just got to polish it up a little bit, do a few things, and then start getting that uploaded to YouTube and wrap up the pattern pack. Pattern pack's going to be cool. There's going to be 6 different floral patterns for each tooling window. So there's 3 tooling windows in this video. So you'll be able to do this scabbard to fit 3 different style of knives, and it'll fit a lot more than that. But those are just the 3 most popular sizes that I make. So there'll be 6 different floral patterns for each one of those windows. You can certainly take, there's 18 of them, you can certainly take any of those and cross-pollinate them, so to speak. Like you can put one on another one or scale it up or add to it or finagle it so that it fits. You're technically getting 18 different tooling patterns. The main thing on this project video, like I say in the video, is the tooling window, because that sizes that whole thing up. You can cut out all the scabbards the same size, use that tooling window when you're tooling it. It'll tell you where to stitch, and then when you stitch it, it'll fit the knife. You don't have to form it, you don't have to do any of that stuff. It'll just fold it over, sew it up, and it'll fit. And we'll have that done sometime. I'll probably have that done today. It'll be uploaded to YouTube. This video will go out today, obviously. Probably knife scabbard video tomorrow. We'll see how everything goes. Today is Columbus Day, as I mentioned a minute ago. You ever thought that was weird? The day we celebrate a man who discovered a continent for the very first time, and the people who lived there. I always thought that was weird. Whatever. Discovered the I don't know. It gets really confusing. I really personally don't care. Last week we got a lot done. I'll show you that in a minute. I got the front on the ranch saddle and then the skirts on both of them, and actually the roping saddle, I got the skirts plugged and wooled and dyed and braided together. They're ready to stitch on, which we will do today, and that saddle will be moving along quickly, so it will be done here shortly. It'll be completely finished. And then while I was doing that, I ended up pulling the cord instead of the plug. Somebody on my Instagram story or Instagram or something commented on that. You sound like my dad, because that's what he used to always say. Pull the plug, not the cord, because I'm bad about that. I still do it. Have something plugged in, I just pull the cord to get it out of the wall or out of the extension cord that I'm using. But this time, she pulled right out of there. And so I've got to wire this up. This looks like the oldest plug in history. I bought these clippers at a pawn shop, and so I don't know how old they are. I know they work good, especially for skirts. But yeah, that plug just popped right out of there. So I don't know, might have my electrician buddy look at it. I'm sure I could fix it, but I don't do electricity. And he's coming this week to replace our bulbs in the warehouse, which is great. That's the back of this building. It's a nice big metal building, concrete floor, everything. We're going to use it for multiple things. I've got my freezers right now full of meat here because I don't have room at the house for all my freezers, so everything's there. And then we're going to put some storage out there. If I ever get a clicker, that'll go out there and all that. But right now it's dark back there. The only way I get light is to roll up the door and let the sunlight come in. So he's coming to replace those bulbs. The sidewalls on this building are like 15, 20 foot tall maybe. They're pretty tall, so those lights are way up there. And I don't do electricity, and I don't do ladders. And so I'm not getting up there myself to replace the lights. So he's coming, and he's going to take care of that for me, and maybe he can check that for me too. Claudia's doing a great job of staying ahead of me and scheduling, and she made me a belt cut list last week, and we've been slowly working through that. I'm going to be cutting a bunch of belts today so that we can kind of get these all cut and ready to go. This is, I guess this would be the beginning of our Christmas list. I'm going to be real honest with you. Probably 90% of the orders that we've taken in the last 2 or 3 weeks are just orders. Like, they're not Christmas, like that's for Christmas or whatever, your book's still open for Christmas. We're getting a lot of inquiries and a lot of calls like we usually do this time of year. But it's surprising because I asked them, well, okay, this is for Christmas right now. We're 3 to 4 weeks out, so it'll be around Thanksgiving, whatever. And they're like, oh, no, this isn't for Christmas. It's just for me. Or it's just for my husband. He just needs a new belt or whatever it might be. And so that's kind of weird. I don't know if people aren't thinking about Christmas. All my friends on online and stuff that do leather work, some of them have already closed their books for Christmas. I usually start thinking about closing my books about right now. Usually by Halloween, I'm pretty well booked up. But this year, if I can stay ahead of everything, we're just going to keep going because I don't think the Christmas rush has hit us yet as far as people. I've had some Christmas order calls, but the majority of the calls that I'm getting are just people wanting stuff. And so that's great. Still got to have it done by Christmas. I mean, that's 3 months away. We're not going to, is it 3? 2 months away? Whatever. We're not going to wait until Christmas to get them done. We're just going to keep working on them as our list fills. That's how we kind of gauge when to close the books, is basically, you know, how long until I can get to the one at the bottom. So I don't know how you handle your Christmas orders. I've never found a foolproof way, but I'm not that smart. The best way that I've found is just to keep an eye on what you have and be honest with yourself, because it's great right now during Christmas season because it's very easy. If you have an opening, it's very easy to get an order. Not in a bad way, but it's just one of the things that so many people get full and booked up and they can't take it, that you get people scrambling, especially around Thanksgiving. Oh, can you do a belt? I'll pay anything. You know, I'll do anything. I gotta have it for my kid or my husband or wife or whatever. And so it's very tempting to just take orders, and then be there 3 days before Christmas completely stressed out that you're not going to be able to get them done. And that's the worst possible feeling in the world. And we've done many Christmases that way. I've spent nights at the shop, you know, the week before Christmas trying to get everything done so we get it shipped in time. And that's very, very stressful. And it makes it to where it's not a lot of fun. And you don't do your best work during that time. So just try to rein back just a little bit. Just a tick. And I'd rather you get done a week early and be able to spend time with your family during Christmas than to be up there Christmas Eve while your family's enjoying eggnog and Christmas carols while you're at the shop slinging glue and leather trying to get everything finished. Just kind of be mindful, whatever system you've got to do, if it's a hard date that everything's got to be done by this day. I've got a good friend of mine, Scott Summerlot, that's usually what he does. He sets a hard date on his last day, and he's usually, I don't know how he does it, usually every year about the week, maybe week and a half before Christmas, he's done with all his orders. He doesn't have anything to do from then until Christmas. And usually what that works out to is somebody calls and says, hey, is there any way I can get a pendant or a knife engraved or something like that? It's something easy, something fast, and he'll just make a little bit extra. He'll go ahead and take it and knock it out for a local guy or something, somebody local. And then he keeps stuff in stock too. He keeps some items that he makes up for Christmas. So he does a great job of that. Kind of makes me mad, because every year he's done way before I am. But I'm ignorant. I don't know when to stop. I just keep taking them and take orders, and then all my books are closed, and then like, oh no, I got 1 day left between Christmas. I can do it. Give it to me. I'll do it. But we've been good the last few years where we haven't overloaded too much. I still get stressed out during Christmas. It's just my season. That's our Super Bowl. As a craftsman or artisan of any genre, you're going to be busy at Christmas time. People are always looking for that gift, and that's a great thing. So it's not a bad deal. It's just you hate to get to where you don't get something done. Because if you don't get something done for somebody for Christmas, they're not coming back. That's not, and we've done it. I mean, it's one of them deals. We've definitely had that in the past. Very limited. We've usually got almost everything done, but there's been 1 or 2 times where we've missed something. And Christmas is not the one you want to miss. You miss a birthday, or whatever. But Christmas is the same day every year, and everybody starts planning it early, and some customers wait to the last minute, but those orders I don't take. If they call me 2 weeks before Christmas, I usually won't take an order then at all, because I've got so much other stuff planned out. Another thing too with us is the last few years we've tried to focus too on keeping our saddles moving through Christmas, where in the past saddles pretty much stop. Right around beginning of November, middle of November, they just kind of stop because I need everybody to help me finish all these Christmas orders. And so with the last 4 or 5 years, it's just me, so I've pretty much been able to keep my saddles moving and keep the orders going as well, because their jobs too, they may not be for Christmas, but they need to stay on schedule as well. But yeah, this week, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut belts, check phone messages today. And we mentioned in the last video about the podcast. Not going to say a whole lot about it, but it is coming. It's ready to go. Everything's in place. And we've actually recorded 1 episode, just waiting on I want to do 1 or 2 interviews to add to that little list. I'd like to have 3 episodes before we officially launch it. I'm not going to say much more about it right now, but it's ready to go. It will be here directly. We'll be launching that, so stay tuned for that. All right, let's look at some saddles. Alright, so this was the ranch saddle that we were working on last week that I needed to get a front on. I got the front put on it. I did it one solid piece. It's an 8-inch tall gullet OY, so it's a Stockman OY, so it's a little thicker, and it's taller than what our roper trees usually are. Ropers are usually 7 1/4 inches tall in the gullet area. This one's 8, so that's usually what I do most of my ranch saddles is 8. Some of them I'll do 8 1/2, but 8 seems to be the better height. And then we got the skirts put on. This will be an in-skirt rig, so the tree is then set in the skirts, and so today we'll do final cut as far as trying to figure out our final skirt length and straighten up our bottom just a little bit and find our rig placement on where the plates are going to go. I use a ring plate. I use a round ring. Let me grab that and I'll show you. My favorite ring to use for an in-skirt rig is one of these round rings. I also have the plate with the flange in it, and that one's pretty good too, but I just like this round ring a lot better. I think it's just a little more pleasing, and it's got, you know, 4 rivet holes, and I can put a nice big plug in that inside there too. So it seems to be, to me, seems to be the strongest and works the best, and so that's what we put in this saddle. And so this one will be rocking along pretty quick. Should have skirts plugged and riggings in and all that stuff, and the sheep's wool on this one too this week. And then this roper, we've got the skirts ready to go. Now when I do braid my skirts together and stuff, the way I've kind of changed the way I do my saddle process, the way I build over the years. Terry Henson's helped me to understand a little bit better process as far as the steps and when to do what and whatever. And so I usually, now I do the seat last, and it's one of the last things to go in, where used to it went on when I formed the skirts, like at this stage of this other one. But I've seen him for years do it the other way, where he puts the seat in last, and I've actually found that that's a lot more efficient for me, and it feels a lot better, and it's a lot easier to get a seat to match everything else, and it's a lot easier to build everything else without the seat in the way. So that's kind of what we've been doing. But when you do that, I don't oil my saddles till the very end, and so I don't know that it matters, but I worry about not getting any oil where the tree is. So I went ahead and put a nice little coat of oil on these skirts just where the tree is, because today we'll put the tree on the skirts, and then I'll get everything pinned up on where it goes and all that stuff. Then I'll sew my rigging, and I sew my rigging to the skirt, so we'll do that. And then after that, we'll go ahead and start fitting housing and doing that kind of stuff. But the skirts will go on, and they're on. They're not going to come off. And so they won't come off again, so there's no way to get oil underneath that tree. So that's why I started just putting a little bit of oil in there. Like I said, I don't know that it matters, but it's leather. It probably needs oil. So I have a problem not putting oil on stuff. I can't hardly let it go. So even when I'm doing a honey finish, I have to put just a little bit of oil on there, because veg tan is not a finished leather. It's at a kind of a mid state where you're responsible for finishing it so it'll last. So if you don't oil it, I just feel like it's kind of starving it out just a little bit. Here on the oiling bench, I've got all the pieces for the chaps for Scott Summerlot. So we've got the yokes tooled. I just did kind of a new little flower. I don't know if it's new, I've probably tooled it before, but I did something kind of fun. Just there on these side panels, there'll be a concho that he made. It's a small slotted concho there and there, and we'll have a piece of lace that goes through that concho, and then there'll be another lace right there, and then a concho. So it'll be concho, lace, concho, and that lacing is what will hold the belt straps on. But we're going to let these oil. I'm going to add just a little bit of oil. This one's a little bit lighter than these are, so we'll even these up today. And we'll go ahead and do that right now just to get it to soaking in. And as you can see, it's really just the area where I didn't tool that's still light. And so there's nothing wrong when you're oiling stuff, if you're trying to get stuff to float out, what I call float out, even out, where, you know, this is darker than these areas here, you can just put oil there. You don't have to go over the whole thing. I used to think, oh, you got to go over the whole thing or you're going to get a stain. You do not. You can just go over the light spots. And that will let those areas get darker to bring them up to what the rest of it is. there's nothing wrong with doing that. Some people think you got to oil the whole. If you keep oiling the whole thing, what you're going to end up doing is pulling these dark spots up to a level that they won't get any darker, and then the light spots will start getting to that too. And basically, you've just taken the whole thing to a heavy oil to where it's not going to get any darker. That's the color it's going to be. And I don't want to do that. I don't want it that dark. I want it just kind of this medium, because then we're going to antique them. So we'll do that today, get those sealed and antiqued and edged and dyed and all that, and then we'll start sewing those on the bodies of the chaps and cutting fringe. Here's my little belt straps. I had Claudia cut these out with leather shears last week, and so these will be the straps that go on the legs. So there'll be 3 of those, and we'll line them and stitch them and all that kind of stuff. I know everybody wants a full chap making video. We will work on doing that. I don't know when, but I will try to put more of the interesting aspects of this particular chap build on there, so that maybe that'll help you out a little bit. But we'll try to work on a full build video here soon. It may be after Christmas, I'm not sure, because we've got a lot of other project videos lined up already in the pipeline, and so to do all of that plus that, I don't know if I can get one done. But like I said, I'll probably just build a pair for Claudia and show you how to measure somebody, show you how to, you know, we've already shown how to cut them out, but we'll go through that again, and then the whole build process. And then, you know, the nice thing with that is we can do 3 different, I can do a pair of shotguns, a pair of chinks, and a pair of bat wings or Arizona bells or something like that. So that'll be 3 separate chap type building videos, because they're all different. The measurements and the construction are basically the same, but there are some differences between them. So we'll work on some of those. Real quick, I just wanted to use this Monday morning. I've been wanting to show you all these, but I didn't have a video really where they would work good. But now we have the Monday morning briefing videos, so that's perfect for me just to ramble on about a bunch of stuff that really doesn't matter. I wanted to show you real quick these pieces that my dad made. My dad was a rawhide braider and just kind of self-taught, bought books and learned that way, and over the years, and just always fiddled with braiding and all kinds of stuff, leather and parachute cord, but got really into the rawhide, and that was really what his passion was. So he did a lot of rawhide stuff. I've got a lot of his pieces here. If you come by the shop, above the door, the front door on the inside, is the first bullwhip he ever made. He used to make a lot of bullwhips. That's kind of what got him started. He started making just some leather whips, and down home, a lot of guys use a bullwhip to work cattle in the brush and stuff, because there's really no other way to, you can't really ride through the brush down here. So a lot of South Texas guys, and a lot of, just like a lot of Florida guys, use a lot of bullwhips. And so Dad got to making a few bullwhips just to see if he could, and then ended up getting into rawhide, and then kind of settled on making rawhide bullwhips, which were really neat. And his very first rawhide one that he successfully made was, I've got it hanging, or it above the door in here in the shop, just kind of on display. And then these are some pieces that my brother and I have that he made, that was just always in his shop, and so we have them, and I'm gonna put them in the shop on display. They used to be in our house on display, but I try to keep them greased, and rawhide something that you've got to maintain. You can't just let it dry out and get crusty. These here need another little coating, so usually once a year. They're in a climate controlled building, so I'm not too worried about them, but usually once a year I'll give them a good rub down with some what they call soap, rawhide soap, and so it'll just kind of lubricate these and keep them in good shape. But this is 2 pair of Romal reins that he made with some little colored buttons on there. That was one of his first times trying to dye rawhide, and they turned out pretty cool. They're not all completely finished. I need to do a popper for this. I'll probably make a deal for this one day as on the end of the Romal. And then this one here, he had made this little one here. And the leather work's kind of crude, but the rawhide knots are really cool. And these are actually kangaroo in the middle, the knots are. And that was a really neat pair when he got it done. Nobody down here really rides with Romal reins, but they're really cool. And they just have a really neat history, and they're kind of neat. This is a pair of Rawhide Hobbles that he made. The neat thing with these hobbles is a lot of these pieces he was experimenting with. So they weren't for a customer or something like that, which he sold some things through my store as far as the whips and knife sheaths and stuff, but he didn't really sell a lot of his bull sows and hobbles and stuff. He was just experimenting. And so the neat thing I like about these hobbles is the one on the left, or depending on which way you're holding it, but this one here looks different than the one on the other side. And this side here, if I remember correctly, he actually pared his edges on the rawhide here and then didn't on this one. And he actually liked the way it looked without them being pared, the edges beveled of the lace. And so he was just kind of trying something out there and just experimenting. And so that's pretty neat. I like that piece because of that, because you can see that he wasn't worried so much about how it was going to look. He was trying something to see what it did and how it turned out. And so I just really think that was cool. That was part of his process. And then these two bosals here, this one here is completely rawhide. I don't remember what he used inside for the core or anything like that, so you rawhide braiders, limit your questions, because I don't know a whole lot about it. I wish I'd have paid more attention to the rawhide braiding. I braid this far, and that's where the skirts come together on saddle. That's all the braiding I know how to do. Then this one here, he did a latigo end here, the knot at the bottom, and I just think those two bosals are really neat. And I have another one that we actually used for a long time. It actually broke. A good friend of ours was using it, and it just happened to break. And he was really upset about it. You know, he told me, he said, I got to give this back to you, and I'm so sorry. I said, Dad would have been very happy to know that you broke it using it. Because down here, I mean, there's not a lot of folks that ride with a bosal, and a lot of he didn't build a lot of these. He would have been very happy to know that one of his bosals was being used on a colt or on a young horse and ended up, you know, getting used up and breaking. So that would have been something neat for him, is to have a piece like that actually out there getting used. Bullwhips, his bullwhips, there's a lot of people. I actually had a customer a few years ago that came by the shop and had finally wore the fall off of his bullwhip that Dad had made him probably 10 years ago. He bought it at my store. He never met my dad, but Dad made him a bullwhip because we sold some of them in the store. And he came in and just wanted a new fall on it. He didn't know that my dad had passed away, and so I tried to cheat him out of that whip, see if he wanted to sell it, but he did. He said, I'll never sell it. I said, well, if you ever do, call me, because I'd like to have it. It's nothing special about that one in particular. I just like to collect whatever things of his that I could buy back. It would just be kind of neat. I've also got one of his whips here. Let me get it down. This is one of Dad's bullwhips here. This is what this style of whip here is very popular in South Texas. It's just a solid handle, braided here and then down to here. Now these usually are braided from the bottom up to the handle. This whip in particular, this was my brother's, and this was what I used to tell everybody, that Ben had the very best whip Dad ever made, because when I was in, I guess, freshman in college or something, Dad had made Ben a whip, my brother a whip, and it was a 6-foot bullwhip, and it was the funnest. I love cracking a bullwhip. I've cracked 10-footers, 8-footers, 6-footers. This little whip was the funnest to crack. I mean, we'd try to crack little things on the ground, you know, things off of post top, stuff like that. This little whip was really, really handy, and the nice thing I liked about it was very small. And so if you were riding and needed to carry it, you could carry it like that, and it's out of the way. You don't have this long thing hanging down that's in the way all the time. So, and you could crack this whip horseback, or you could crack it on the ground. It didn't matter. It was very easy to handle. If you get something much over 8 foot, it gets really hard to crack on the ground in a set of pins, or on the ground in a line of brush or something. You're trying to move something out of a thicket of brush or something. So this little whip was always my favorite, and Ben has had it ever since. And when he came down, when he was here for the video that he did where he played one of his songs in the shop and stuff, that little fun video, he actually gave this whip to my son. Not to me. He gave it to my son. Oh wells. Anyway, so my son now owns this whip. So the first thing I did, he said, I want him to have it. And he said, I don't have any use for it anymore. And he said, I know that you'll help him take care of it. So my son has my favorite whip that my dad ever made. And so what I did was I greased it up because it was really dry. And the bad deal with rawhide, like this one hangs good now. So now it's nice and soft, and this is all rawhide. But when Ben brought it in, it was more like this. So it was very dry and very, you know, just kind of like a wire. And so these are like grass ropes. If you're going to have a rawhide whip, you've really got to maintain them with some rawhide soap or grease, something to keep that rawhide soft so that they work properly. But so that's the first thing I did was wipe it down, and then we hung it up. And I prefer, if I'm storing a whip, my favorite way is straight up and down like that. Another reason why I like this little short whip. It's a little bit shorter than it was originally because, like I said, this was braided from the bottom up, I believe, on this style that he made. And the fall finally wore out and broke. And the fall was, I'm almost positive the fall on this whip, it's been so long ago, was originally rawhide, and it was cut from the bottom up is how he made it. Well, the fall finally broke, and when it did, we had to cut it off, unbraid some, and then do the more of a traditional fall installation, which is the only way to replace a fall when they're braided from the fall up. And so we replaced that, but that did shorten the whip by, I don't know, yay much. And so it's actually, you know, without the fall, the whip is that tall, so, you know, whatever that is, 4.5 feet, something like that. But it's a really neat whip. One of my favorite pieces that is not mine, it is my son's. And so I'm glad I was honored that Ben had given it to him. And so, but he don't get it until he gets big enough to crack it, because he's 5. What's he gonna do? Strangle himself with it, or hit sister in the face with it, or whatever. And his ropes he leaves laying out in the yard all the time. And I tell him all the time, I sound like my dad, but I tell him all the time, pick up your ropes or I'm gonna cut them up. Pick up your ropes, I'm gonna cut them up. I said, I don't care where you hang them. Hang them on a fence post, hang them anywhere. I don't care. Hang them off the tongue of the trailer. It doesn't matter, but don't leave them on the ground. They're always on the ground. They're always on the ground. He doesn't get this whip. He gets to play with it when he comes into the shop. He gets to play with it. He doesn't really know. He's never seen me crack one yet. I probably need to take it home and crack one, but I know the minute he sees that, he's gonna try to do it. He's gonna hit himself in the face. Cracking a bullwhip and teaching somebody to crack a bullwhip is very strategic, because everybody wants to do it this way, and it cracks right here by your face. And sometimes it can get you right in the face. So I have a way of teaching people where they won't hit themselves in the face, but he's not tall enough yet to do that. So we'll work on that at some point, and we'll do that. If you're ever by the shop and you want to come by and crack a bullwhip, we got this one. We could sure get out there in the parking lot and crack it a few times, and it's a lot of fun. If you've never cracked a bullwhip, it's pretty fun. It's entertaining. It's very loud. It used to be fun at parties in college and stuff to pull a bullwhip out and go behind the house or wherever, the barn or wherever we were having a little get together, fire off a couple rounds on a bullwhip, and then come back around the corner like nothing happened and see everybody scattering, wondering what was going on. So it's a lot of fun. So anyway, I just wanted to show you all those. That's just some of my dad's pieces. I thought they were interesting. They will be hanging on the showroom at some point. I haven't quite figured out exactly how I'm going to hang everything, but they'll be out there, just a conversation piece. And I was always proud of his work on rawhide braiding, because he spent so long learning how to do it and trying to figure out rawhide. And if you've never messed with rawhide, it can be very, very frustrating. And the guys that are good at it, I admire so much, because that material is really hard to work with, and you've got a small window of time as well during the work of it, that before it dries out, and then it just becomes the pain, and then your braiding looks different. So it's not for me. Maybe one of these days I'll pick it back up. I do wish I knew more about the bullwhip making part of it and should have paid more attention, but I was learning saddles while he was perfecting his bullwhips and stuff, so I really didn't have the time to devote to it, and unfortunately now I don't. So, but I've got all his notes and books and stuff like that, and we've got some of his pieces, so hopefully one of these days I can try my hand at it. But if you make bullwhips and know a lot about bullwhips and stuff like that, shoot me an email or comment down below. It's kind of one of those deals that's almost a little bit of a lost trade. There's not a lot of people out there making them anymore. I know there's a lot of people in Florida that still use bullwhips. Now, they don't really use the rawhide ones as much. They're using a paracord bullwhip that I really, really like. Those are really fun to work with. A lot less maintenance. They're a lot cheaper, and they're just a really good whip, and they work really, really well. Some of y'all may not have ever seen anybody use a bullwhip, more working cows and stuff like that, or just anybody that's real used to being around a bullwhip or anything. But in Florida and South Texas, it's pretty common for people to have a bullwhip on them or in the truck or something like that for those purposes. So, but that's all I got for you today. Make it happen this week, folks. Like I said, we're getting Christmas season. We're getting down to the wire. We've got a lot of stuff going on this fall. The holidays are beginning. Halloween's coming up. That's always a fun time. So stay connected with us. Be sure and subscribe to the Leathercraft newsletter. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't. If our channel just popped up on you, go back and check out some of our tutorial videos. We got a lot of project videos, tooling tutorials, anything having to do with leathercraft. If you're looking for more information, visit dgsaddlery.com. Thank y'all, and we'll see you next week.